How are we to predict the future? Is it even possible to predict the future? And what is the future of AI? AI, of course, is all about prediction. You take data, you look at that data, and you predict the future based on that data. And human beings also are all about prediction. Indeed, according to Ray Kurzweil, leading futurologist, the reason that we have a brain at all is in order to predict. He cites the example of the ancient cave person. He or she sees a wild animal on the horizon and notices that the direction in which that animal is going going to intersect with his or her own pathway, and decides to therefore change that direction to avoid that animal. Or indeed, the opposite might happen. In hunting, perhaps it is precisely a question of intersecting with the direction of that animal. Human beings, then, are prediction machines. And we predict also in terms of our perception, as Anil Seth has pointed out. We have to predict based on our prior perceptions and our previous beliefs. We don't know what's out there, but we give our best guess. We predict what is out there. According to Nobel Prize-winning physicist Niels Bohr, prediction is very difficult, especially about the future. But isn't there another problem there? If we predict something and it proves to be accurate, isn't it just so obvious? Or if we get it wrong, isn't it also very obvious? Ray Kurzweil has perhaps been the person who has made the most predictions about the future of AI. In 1992, he published The Age of Intelligent Machines. In 2000, he published The Age of Spiritual Machines. In 2005, he published The Singularity is Near, perhaps his most famous book. And in 2013, he published How to Create a Mind. And he's made predictions elsewhere. The problem for Ray Kurzweil, though, is that although he's been absolutely very accurate, he has a success rate of roughly 86%, he claims. The problem has been that sometimes his predictions have proved too accurate in some senses. Back in 1992, he predicted that we would have wireless networks. This would allow for the easy sharing of courseware, submissions by students for exams, papers and course responses, and other creations, electronic mail and other communications. By being plugged into international networks of information, he wrote, students will have immediate access to all the libraries of the world right from their school bags. Of course, it's been proved correct. But back then, it was not so obvious. Those were the days before the internet. Those were the days of faxes, a world in which we had nothing of this. No Wi-Fi, no laptops, and no internet. And sometimes also, Kurzweil has been accurate, but he's got the date wrong. He predicted by 2009 that we would have what he called cybernetic chauffeurs. Our cars would be driven automatically. Self-driving began to appear at the end of 2020. He was a few years wrong. It wasn't 2009, it was from 2020 onwards. There are basically four stages in terms of the future of AI. The first one, when AI matches human intelligence. The second one, what's called the singularity, where as a result of exponential growth, we have this explosion of intelligence across the universe. Soon after that, we get what is called artificial general intelligence, AGI, when artificial intelligence gains consciousness. Then eventually we find ourselves in a stage called either superintelligence, as Nick Bostrom has termed it, or ultra-intelligence, as Good referred to it in the 1960s. The point where machines become so capable that they far exceed the capacity of human beings. Indeed, once we reach the stage of superintelligence, where machines are able to think and design other machines, this will be the last invention we ever need to make, because at that point, human beings will be utterly left behind. But the problem is, no one really agrees on these issues. Nobody can even agree on the terms, and certainly no one can agree on the dates. Besides, aren't we finding already that the way in which things develop is very incremental in different areas at different speeds? In the field of Go, in the field of chess, we've already been left behind. But in other areas, human beings still have an advantage over AI. To my mind, the future is less likely to be an explosion than an incremental creep. It's a bit like boiling a frog. You will not even notice it. If you want to boil a frog, they say you should not just drop the frog into the boiling water. You should place the frog in some lukewarm water that is gradually being heated up. No one will notice the difference. And so it is with technologies. Toby Walsh predicts that we will soon be banned from driving, and we won't even notice or care. His point is that these things happen incrementally. We don't even notice they're coming across us. We're not even aware of what's happening. In a culture of amnesia, we soon forget the past. How many of us remember what it was like to live in a world without the internet, without the cell phone? What it was like to live in a world in which all we had was faxes and so on. Things happen gradually and we don't notice. Driving will go out of fashion, according to Toby Walsh, and we won't even notice or care. Self-driving cars will become increasingly prevalent. They'll be very convenient, and eventually we'll start using them more and more. And think about an Uber. Does it really matter if you talk to the driver or not? Eventually, Uber cars will all become self-driving. And eventually, it'll become expensive to drive because we'll have lost our driving skills. We'll have lost our driving skills, and insurance will go up. Insurance will go up, and eventually we'll say, what the hell, and abandon driving altogether. Driving will disappear, and we won't even notice or care. Will the same happen for architecture? It's worth speculating on how we will refer to AI in the future. What's interesting is that when cars first appeared, they were called horseless carriages. Eventually, cars became more prevalent than horse-drawn carriages. The term we had used for horse-drawn carriages was just carriages. But once cars became more prevalent, we referred to them as cars, no longer as horseless carriages, but as cars, and we referred to horse-drawn carriages as horse-drawn carriages. The same happened with drawings in the architectural office. Initially, all drawings were drawn by hand and were just called drawings. Then computer drawings appeared, and we called them computer drawings. Then eventually computer drawings became more prevalent than human-drawn drawings, so computer drawings became called drawings, and human-drawn drawings were called human drawings, hand drawings. Will not the same happen with cars? Currently we refer to self-driving cars. They're distinguished from cars. But once self-driving cars become the norm and human-driven cars become very, very infrequent, will we not simply refer to them as human-driven cars, chauffeur-driven cars, perhaps? And maybe in the future, just as we have horse-drawn carriages to go to a wedding, we'll have chauffeur-driven cars to take us to various special events. The world will be changing gradually, and we will change our language to refer to that. And what about AI? I guess the point about AI is that really it's all about the question of intelligence itself. We find that either neuroscientists, people such as Anil Seth, have been trained in AI, or we find people who are AI specialists, such as Jeffrey Hinton or Demis Hassabis, have themselves taken PhDs in neuroscience. The quest for AI is the quest for intelligence itself. And as AI exceeds human intelligence, will we not simply refer to it as intelligence? And will we not, in a somewhat disparaging way, refer to that lesser form of intelligence, human intelligence, as human intelligence? The world will change, and will change the words that we use. And so too with architecture. Increasingly now we have architectural intelligence. All forms of architecture are intelligent. But once architectural intelligence becomes pervasive, will we not just simply refer to it as architecture? What is the future of AI? To my mind, it's going to be incremental change. It's going to be gradual. It's going to be like boiling a frog. And it'll happen at different speeds and different domains. Different speeds and different domains, but eventually it'll become all pervasive. And will we even remember what it was like before AI, before the age of the computer, before the age of the internet, before the age of cell phones? And will we even notice or care?